Woods here. Peter Rojas from Gadget.com. Jason Snell from MacWorld, of course, to talk about the iPhone 5 and a whole lot more. Maps, Microsoft, Twitter, Google, and more. Coming up next on TWiT. Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT. Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by the new Winamp for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Video bandwidth for TWiT is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 372, recorded September 23rd, 2012. Strapped to a journey. This Week in Tech is brought to you by GoToMeeting with HD Faces from Citrix. All it takes is a cam and a click to turn your online meeting into a high-definition video conference. Meet with colleagues anywhere in the world, even from an iPad. Sign up for your 30-day free trial today. GoToMeeting.com, click the Try It Free button, use the promo code TWiT. And by Stamps.com. Start using your time more effectively with Stamps.com. Use Stamps.com to buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it right from your desk. For our special offer, visit Stamps.com, click the radio microphone, and enter TWiT. And by FreshBooks, the easy online invoicing app for small businesses that saves time and gets you paid faster. Join over 3.5 million FreshBooks users and try the service free for 30 days at freshbooks.com. And by Audible.com. Sign up for the Platinum plan and get 2 free books. Go to audible.com/TWiT2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter. User ID Audible_com. It's time for TWiT, This Week in Tech, the show that covers your technology news from the week. I apologize for not being here last week. I thank John C. Dvorak for filling in. But I'm back, baby, and we've got lots to talk about and a great panel to do it with, starting to my left with Mr. MacWorld. Actually, you're now editorial director for all of IDG Publications, Jason Snell.
Hi, it's great to be
PC
here.
World, MacWorld,
Tech Hive, yeah.
and Tech Hive. The new site launched.
Last week.
Oh, congratulations. So, what is Tech Hive? It's a little different than a tech. It's not exactly like a magazine, or it's what is it?
It's another. It's a tech website like MacWorld and PC World, but about more general technology stuff. So cameras, phones, tablets, web, social media. Sort of trying to do what PC World and MacWorld have always done, but being able to spread our wings a little bit.
I really like it. Look at that. Very interesting.
Good folks at Mule Design helped us design them.
I was judging it by the way it used to look.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of a generic WordPress.
Yeah, it was pretty much. Watch the space.
You fooled me.
This is
beautiful. TechHive.com. Well, it's good to have you back, Jason.
It's great to be here.
Usually have them on Mac Break Weekly, but this is a good time for you to be on the show. We'll explain why in a moment. Also with us, very good time to have him from Gadget.com, Peter Rojas. Good to have you, Peter.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Long-time observer of the tech scene.
Yeah, I've been in the game for way longer than I like to admit at this point.
Yeah. Well, good. We have something to talk about with you, too. And I am so pleased to welcome Molly Wood back for the first time in months.
Hello. It's wonderful to be back. It has been ages.
It has been ages, and I haven't had a chance to congratulate you on Always On, which is really good.
Thank you.
I don't think Peter Rojas jumped out of a plane with an HTC One. I don't think Jason Snell jumped out of a plane. But Molly Wood jumped out of a plane.
It's true. A helicopter, actually.
Why a helicopter? It seems that would be more dangerous.
I think so. Okay, so we worked with GoPro, and their stunt team actually set up the logistics for us and jumped alongside of us. We were recreating that HTC One X commercial where, he jumps out of the plane to test the camera and try to do a fashion shoot in midair. And I think apparently the whole stunt community is way into jumping out of helicopters because you can be more precise with your landing zones. And they like that you can sort of climb out onto the struts like Mission Impossible.
It's like base jumping. So
It
let me-
is like it's
yeah.
a lot like space jumping, and in fact, then the free fall sensation is way more intense than an airplane because you're basically jumping from a standstill. Which is when I discovered that I do not have the stomach for that at all.
Oh,
No. In fact, I can't even watch the footage now without getting a little bit nauseous.
had you jumped out of an airplane or a flying vehicle of any kind ever before?
No.
What are you, nuts? Where?
It might as well be for work.
And is it? That looks like a familiar person you're jumping with. Is that Jeff Kanata?
Is Jeff Kanata. He has been an always-on correspondent for us. He's done a couple pieces. We torture tested the Nexus 7 together, and then we flew him up so that he could jump with his iPhone, so we could do a comparison, a head-to-head comparison with the HTC One X and the iPhone camera.
I would have loved to have been at the editorial meeting where somebody said, "Hey, Molly, what if you jumped out of a helicopter for
I
this?"
know. It was the GoPro people came up with it. Actually, one of our producers is friends with someone who works at GoPro. And they were like, "What can we do?" And it was the same guys. The guys that we jumped with are the same guys who did the Google Glasses jump for Google. And
Oh, neat. That was cool.
I'm total nerdgasm. I'm like, "Oh God, you guys are famous."
They were superstars, yeah. So you're very brave. I don't think it spoils anything to say that you did not squish on the ground.
No, we didn't die.
Molly survived the jump.
This is all
We
being
jumped
taped.
the center today, so it's possible that he didn't die either.
I love it that the instructions show you a banana.
Yeah.
This is how you jump out of an airplane.
It was a good day. It was a good day of
That's
work.
crazy. Yeah. What fun. What fun. There they go out of the helicopter. Were you buddy jumping? You didn't do it by yourself.
Total tandem. That was kind of, it's always reassuring to be with Class A professionals anyway. So the GoPro team is super reassuring because they jump off of whatever, like 9 times a day. And then, I'm strapped onto like a super efficient German guy.
Well, if you're going to ride anybody from 30,000 feet down to the ground, you want it to be a super efficient German guy.
Kind of do, And he got it done, man. He made sure that I was doing the
You will jump out of the plane now.
Yeah, you don't have time to throw up.
You don't have time to throw up.
We're going to practice our landing, and then you need to upload your photos.
Well, I think that's really cool. And I'm always on. It's at cnet.com/always on if you want to watch. It's the most recent episode. I don't know if you proved anything, but it's a lot of fun.
Prove that the commercial actually is
doable.
possible.
Yeah.
So we would not prove. The chat room said that my mic is annoying them, so I'm moving it around.
Good. Yeah, that's fine.
Do everything the chat room says.
Okay. I'm going to put a coffee on my head. All right. So I guess the iPhone 5 came out this week.
What? Huh?
Did you get yours?
Probably should have covered that.
I got a couple here.
Yeah. Now, I thought it was kind of interesting because The Verge did not get a review unit.
Yeah.
Did Gadget get a review unit?
No, but we tend to aggregate the reviews from everybody else, and so
you didn't need a review.
we didn't really need the review unit, and we went through and had our team pulling in. I think we have about 19, 20 different sites that we pulled in the reviews from.
So
to
it's kind of
aggregate the Metascore.
That's actually what I wanted anyway.
Yeah.
I like that. But Macworld did.
I didn't get one either. I got one Friday morning.
What's odd? Me too. What's odd is, of course, the Wall Street Journal. Walt Mossberg's finished one. David Pogue's going to get one. John Gruber got one. MG Siegler got one. The kind of bloggers. And I have to say, excuse me, but the impression I got was the friendly bloggers seemed to get some. In fact, I was told, Andy Anako told me that Gruber was like kind of very visibly at the demo brought into the middle to be given his phone. And I think that's a little message from that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Macworld Magazine, dude!
I've given up on trying to understand why Apple does what it does, and I don't feel entitled. It was nice. I got.
I don't feel entitled either.
I got
and I don't
advanced
mind
access. I'm happy when I get advanced access,
Right.
and if I don't, then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm writing. My review is open on my laptop right now. I'm halfway through
It
it.
is.
So yeah,
You're going to write it while you do the show?
it's possible.
Are you on deadline?
It depends on how the show goes.
So you and I both brought show and telling, but what I brought, which I thought would be kind of an interesting thing to do, is to show the original iPhone. Now, there's no question in 2007, when this came out, this was the Jesus phone. That's what we called it. And there was nothing like it.
Right.
I know it's a little sacrilegious, but it was the phone, right? RIM, BlackBerry, no.
Yeah, totally. Phones at that time did not look like this,
Yeah.
and now they do.
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting because, and by the way, I also brought, unfortunately, I don't have the charger for it. This is the first Google phone, first Android phone.
G1.
Yeah.
From HTC, which came out about a year later, I think, 2008.
I think it was about fall 2008.
Yeah.
And this, I wish I could turn it on because piece of junk. Slow, unusable, just
I actually
not.
kind of liked it.
Did you?
Yeah, I used it.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
it's got the slider keyboard because that was a big deal to like differentiate it from the iPhone.
Right.
It's got a physical keyboard.
Well, it's also that this phone was in pre-production for a really long time because Google wanted to get everything really sorted with Android before they put the first phone out. And so right off the bat, I mean, remember when I talked to HTC and Google, they said the future phones are going to be much better than this.
They knew, and in
And
fact,
the
they got better.
They had to lock the hardware down much earlier than normally would. I think the hardware was locked down a year before release.
Yeah. So that's that is unusual.
It is unusual. It was just because it was the first Android phone.
And Android got better very fast. But what's interesting, why don't you give me? Can I have your S3? Because we could do this kind of comparison. So this is the first Google phone compared to the latest. Many agree the best Google phone, the S3. This is the first iPhone compared to the latest iPhone 5. And I have to admit, there's my Google Authenticator. I have to. No, it's useless.
You're hacked. You're gone.
And no, it's useless. 30 seconds later, it's something else. I have to admit, these two look a lot more alike than the first Google phone and the top-of-the-line Google phone. And now, if you compare the S3 to the iPhone 5, is it okay if I open this up? I don't want to show anything. There we go. A bigger screen. Even this tall iPhone 5 screen is shorter than the screen, and it's a lot narrower of the Galaxy S3. I'm not sure what this comparison is showing us, except that perhaps Apple has not evolved very rapidly.
Apple's about dropping a big product and then iterating on it year by year, and Apple only makes one phone, right? They make the iPhone, and they make a new one every year.
This is the fifth one. This is like the 500th.
Right.
Android.
Right. When Samsung makes more than one Android phone, right? They make a bunch, and so there's variety from other manufacturers, and Apple isn't playing that game, at least not yet, right? They're taking one shot that they think will appeal to the broadest audience, and they also want the iPhone to be recognizably an iPhone, but they're playing a different game almost.
Well,
but I think that HTC and Samsung are changing
so far along in the iPhone thing. It's making it, this is the iPhone 5, but it's really more like the iPhone 10 or something, right? So it's getting increasingly underwhelming, I think, to get.
It's only the sixth.
The laws of physics mean that there's only so much better you can make it. It still ultimately is a rectangular touchscreen so far, and it's when you upgrade, it still is an iPhone, which is kind of nice because you know exactly what you're doing. But it's also, if you have kind of the gadget fever, it's a little bit like, it's kind of still an iPhone.
Yeah, I mean that's
start taking photos.
That's the game they're playing. But you're absolutely right. I think Apple does that intentionally, but I think you're right.
Well, I think there's just a reality that the smartphone market. I mean, we're now many years into the market, 5 years into the iPhone, and we're now. First smartphones really hit, over a decade ago. When you look back, the Nokias and the Trios and things like that. And I think that we're reaching a place where the market is. I don't want to say it's mature, but we are at greater than 50% penetration of the market in the U.S. And a lot of the early hurdles and innovations have happened already. We've gotten over some of those hurdles, and I think the idea that we're going to have dramatic transformation of what smartphones look like or do, it's not necessarily realistic. I mean, it's kind of like where we were 20 years ago with PCs, where once we got into the form factors and got to Windows and everything, there wasn't necessarily dramatic changes that were going to happen.
Here's my other takeaway from this: that the iPhone, when it first came out, was singular, one and only.
Right.
This is now one of many phone choices, and I think the good news for users is we have very credible choices on every carrier. From not only from Apple and Samsung, but from a bunch of other companies. The new and here comes Windows Phone.
Yeah,
and
we're talking about the 8X and the 8S.
The 8X is a pretty sweet phone.
It is, in terms of the hardware. Just talking about the hardware in terms of
that's
design.
the problem.
And there's the problem. Let's. I mean, we can talk about Windows Phone in a sec, but I think if you just talk about the hardware and the design and the thoughtfulness that's went into the 8X, I mean, they are getting to, I would say, Apple-esque levels of quality, fit and finish, thoughtfulness of the design, and the qualities that they're trying to imbue into the device to make it a delightful experience. I think that, setting aside how you feel about Windows Phone, just that the HTC is actually producing some of the best phone hardware around.
I thought the Lumia 920 was going to be the Windows 8 phone I wanted, and I've been convinced by
I would go
Paul
for the
Thurrott.
8X.
Yeah, Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley agree.
Yeah, looks much better.
This is the phone. Now, nobody really played with it yet because Microsoft's not letting... Were you able to touch icons?
I've played with the 8X.
You have? All right. So somebody has. Mary Jo Foley was not allowed to... She was allowed to hold it, but not to actually touch an icon.
Yeah, no, I had access in other ways.
One of the things Microsoft has told its manufacturers is we're not ready to show all the features of Windows Phone 8 yet. So they haven't released an SDK, which is a problem, I think, but we can get to that later. And they haven't really let people really play with it. But good, I'm glad you did. So tell us about it.
I mean, the screen is amazing. I wasn't able to spend that much time with Windows Phone 8 to really, get into a lot of the, the new stuff that's available to it.
But the hardware you like.
The hardware's great. I mean, the camera is really nice on the 8X.
This may be the best camera, better than the Lumia.
Definitely better than Lumia.
Yeah.
The phone itself is thinner, and the screen is really pops. And the other thing is they're offering these, really bright colors. I mean, I couldn't
some sort of lime green, fire engine green. It looks like.
I couldn't carry that. But
really?
I did. I love the yellow. I love the lime green phone. I think these are. Windows has such a hill to climb in terms of marketing and getting attention that, frankly, it's not a bad idea to pull out every single stop, including lime green phones. Because there's no reason that these phones can't be serious competitors to Android, serious competitors to I would say that Windows 8 phones, to me, are the one-to-one competition for iPhone in terms of market segment, in terms of people who want sort of a simple experience that is consistent, that crosses devices. It's just that Microsoft has to make that sell for people.
But here's the problem.
Microsoft has to do a much better job marketing.
And apps. The apps are not there. They haven't released an SDK. Developers, unless you're one of the handful who are close partners of Microsoft, can't even yet write software for this thing.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a problem. It's coming out in 2 months.
Yeah, it's getting better, but I think that Microsoft is, the biggest challenge that they have is that they need to go back 2 years in time, right? I mean, they just wasted too much time with Windows Mobile, and they pulled the trigger to do Windows Phone just way later than they needed to. And that's, whether or not that's a deficit that they can overcome with, by improving Windows Phone and having great hardware partners is an open question. It may be, it's possible that there's nothing they can do to make up that time.
It reminds me of the 49ers Vikings. Towards the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth, they were down a couple of touchdowns.
You got to start to go for it. Go
At
punt.
some point, you can't punt.
You can't punt anymore. You got to just go for it.
You go for,
that yellow phone. I mean, I think Molly's right that they're trying to reach a segment very similar to Apple. Don't make a phone that fulfills all the same needs that Apple fulfills. Make all the phones that Apple will never make because they're only going to make one, right? And that means colors and big screens. Yeah, do anything you can to not be an iPhone.
On the iPhone, as long as it's black or white. Although it's pretty. Look, this is made like a Swiss watch. It feels good to me.
That black phone, I had no idea. I only ever used the white one.
Yeah.
In the demo room at the event, and
you
the
like
black one with because the metal ring around it, it doesn't look like the 4S. It's got the black metal ring. Everything about it is how much blacker could it be? It's like the Spinal Tap phone, none more black.
Was it you who said it's the 2001 monolith?
Yeah. I mean, that's going around. It's also, it's Darth Vader's phone basically.
I'm glad I got the black because I got it sight unseen and I like it. Some people have been saying that this paint is scratching. I took an X-Acto knife and scored it did not scratch. So this isn't paint. This is animal.
I've been hearing a lot of complaints. And I've been hearing people that their phone is nicked or scuffed when they take it out of the box.
Well, bring it back if it's nicked or scuffed.
Well, but it's happening. But I'm saying I'm getting hearing from more people than you would expect that it's a problem.
Well, it's funny because Apple made a big deal at the announcement about how they take a picture of the back and then match it with a very precisely matched, they want it to come across as if this is made like a Swiss watch.
It sounds like the bevel.
But they are making 8 million in 2 months or something.
Sure,
right?
but it sounds like the bevel, the shampoo, or whatever it is the place where a lot of the scuffing is happening. Which is where
that
it's
may
got
be
a little
painted.
bevel on the edge.
I think that's painted. Yeah.
But you can't have it both ways, right? It's like Apple, you can't tout like your quality control and like fit and finish and then say, well, you know what, things happen.
Yeah. We are gonna. I will say, tomorrow is when I start torture testing the
Molly, you've got the microphone. You now look like you're a
I can't
bore.
even
She's wearing Google glasses.
I hate it.
Yeah, we can hear your eye.
I know, seriously, like, my eyes make a weird noise. My hair touched it. My hair touched it. I hate them. And then the chat room is like,
You
anyway,
sound
I'm
fine.
leaving it here, or I'm just going to take it off.
You sound fine.
Okay, thanks. I look hilarious, but at least I sound good.
Yeah. Well, you always look
So
good.
we're
You're
going to start, and
gorgeous.
one of the things that I am going to make sure that I do is try to drag it along the ground
Oh, that's nice.
specifically, so that we can see if we get that scratching
Yeah,
in the back.
Molly's famous for the torture tests.
My Fixit did a scratch test, and they managed to scratch it up. Everything except for the lens cover, which is that sapphire crystal thing. It doesn't scratch, but everything else will scratch to hell.
Well, of course it will,
Because
it's not made of magic
adamantium.
adamantium. It's
Unobtainium.
Come on, of course you're gonna
The
get
funny
scratched.
thing about that is if they just made it out of plastic,
It would
probably
scratch.
be more durable. Like I went to town on the Samsung Galaxy S3 and could not put a dent in that thing. And part of the reason is because it's little cheapy plastic. And then this comes out, and it almost feels cheap compared to the iPhone 4S, which felt like a heavy premium piece of Waterhouse crystal.
Really? No,
This
I
thing
agree
is
with
so
that.
sort of lightweight that I was
I've
like,
heard people
oh, it feels a
say
little
that.
pink.
I've heard people say that. This was glass on the back of the 4S, and this is metal. I like the. Maybe it's I don't know. It's a guy thing, but I feel like this is like the Porsche design version of the phone. I like it better than the old.
I didn't expect them to be able to. Molly's point about the laws of physics earlier. I didn't expect Apple to really reduce the size, really the thickness and the weight as much as they did. I figured they were reaching the limits.
Let me
And
see the
it-
S3.
I thought the
density
S3 was pretty bad.
It's not. I mean, it's not much thinner or lighter than an S3. I mean, let's face it. It's in the ballpark. This is what phones are going to be like. Apple does claim the thinnest phone. I don't know if it actually is.
I don't think it is.
I think there are thinner phones.
Yeah.
Out there. But what it is, according to Anand Tech and PC Magazine, by a long shot, is the fastest phone
Yeah.
out there. Now, I don't know if you'd noticed that, to be honest. I don't feel like my Quad 4S3 is slower. But in benchmarks, it's lots slower.
I think you'll notice the jump to LTE more.
That I
than
noticed.
some of the other speeds.
That I notice. And that's huge. LTE, if you're in a Verizon or a AT&T or amazingly enough a Sprint LTE area,
Yeah.
you'll see a big difference.
No,
But they had to do that. Every other phone's LTE.
well, yeah, they had to raise the bar, and that's one reason why they had to make the phone bigger, is to fit a bigger battery.
Oh, that's interesting. Battery life's decent. Right?
although it's about the same. I mean, it's about the same as the old one, but the old one didn't do LTE.
Right. So we don't take a hit.
Yeah, exactly. And they did manage to make it 20% lighter, despite the enhanced
Yeah.
battery, which means all the other components got lighter and the glass got thinner and lighter.
Yep.
And that's they didn't do the
I
iPad
have to say
thing.
though, I'm not noticing enhanced battery. That was the one thing where I would have definitely accepted a heavier phone. I was surprised. That to me was a big surprise that they didn't somehow double down on it because they've done such a good job of battery life with the iPad, with the MacBook Air. There are so many products in their lineup that have phenomenal battery life. I was kind of surprised to see that they didn't make that a big part of their kind of technical development because that to me as a consumer, that's a huge jump. If you double down on technology around battery life, all of a sudden you are definitely speaking my language.
I don't think they can. I mean, are you hearing about any technologies? Battery technology is still.
You can make them bigger, right? I mean, Apple could have chosen to make this phone the same weight as the 4, and they would have gotten more battery life out of it. But Apple seems to have this profile of the amount of battery life that they want, which is about 8 hours, and that seems to be what they're shooting for a phone, and they'd rather trade off more battery life for weight.
I'm reviewing a Razer Max HD, which is the new Droid, and
2Xs.
it goes a long way. But it's a smaller phone, it's a heavier phone. I mean, but if you want battery life, that thing goes 4 or 5 days on standby. I have pictures. I can prove it. So you can get better battery life. I think you're right. In a phone where you can't replace the battery, that becomes an issue. I don't care on my S3. I just have 3 batteries.
Yeah.
And I can just swap them.
You can just pop off that case and swap it
It's
out.
so easy to do.
And it actually has a pretty large battery up.
It's got very good battery
So,
life. Anyway.
I've been pretty happy. And with CM10, I've been pretty impressed.
Now, see, I have to do that because Jelly Bean has not come for the
It's supposed to be soon.
It's been soon for a
But you
month.
still have to deal with TouchWiz, whereas with CM10 you can get closer to a stock Android experience.
So you rooted your S3,
Yeah.
and which S3 do you have?
I have the AT&T one.
And so it was easy to root, and
It was
put
pretty.
CM2
It was pretty easy. I lost LTE. I don't think it's.
That's the problem.
I know.
There's always one thing
but that will probably come at some point.
Yeah, there's always one thing.
It does actually improve the battery life.
I'm sure, but I was feeling totally underwhelmed by iPhone 5 until I started using LTE, and then I was like, oh, snap, I'm in.
Yeah.
This is...
That's the winner. So my take, I'd love to hear what you think, but what I've been saying when I said on the radio show today is if you have a 4S, I don't think a larger screen is enough reason to spend a lot of money out of contract money to upgrade. But if you're in an LTE area, you might consider it. If you have an older phone, it's probably worth the upgrade. But this screen is only one icon, though, 176 pixels higher. It's not.
No, I mean, I'm not sure Apple has ever made an iPhone upgrade that was worth upgrading from last year's model.
That's always their goal.
I think it's more like 2 years because the contract in most places is going to be 2 years. Maybe the Retina upgrade was a 3GS.
It's a 3GS to 4, I thought was.
That was a big jump.
They've done that, but a lot of it is incremental, and then after 2 years, you've kind of collected them. So if I had a friend with a 4S, I would probably say unless they desperately need LTE,
So you agree? That's about what
but with a 4, I think it's a lot easier to make that.
Yeah, if it's $200, it's worth it.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean,
and the other question is Android, Windows Phone, or iPhone. Is there a best? I don't think there is.
There's not a best. It really depends. It comes down to what works for you. And I'm someone who actually really likes to use lots of different platforms in my life.
Me too.
And so, I'll have an iPad, but I carry an Android phone. And I still use the Zune HD sometimes just because it's so, such a great little music device.
Actually, Apple has a new Zune HD. They call it the iPod Nano.
Yeah,
so it's really. You might like it.
Then I have to use iTunes, and then
right.
I'm trying to.
That's a mess.
Trying to keep as much iTunes out of my life as possible.
Zune HD is a great screen.
A great screen. It's a really nice device.
I still have my Zune HD. All right. Well, we're going to talk about some of the controversies, including the Maps controversy. I don't know if it's ginned up or not, but our panel will tell me. And there's other news. Believe it or not, there's other news as well. Lots to talk about, including the fact. I'll throw this in. This Verizon. iPhone 5, the SIM card's unlocked, and I could put an AT&T SIM card in it.
Yeah.
If I wanted.
You won't get LTE.
No. But if I go to Europe, so this makes this, in my opinion, this might be the choice for a traveler.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you get Verizon LTE.
And it's unlocked.
It's unlocked.
As long as you can get a nano SIM or cut a micro SIM down.
The trick is the nano SIM.
I think you can. I actually think you cannot cut a micro SIM down, which is going to be a bummer. But
Yeah,
I think
you can.
They really?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I've seen both.
I've seen people cut down the micro SIM to the nano SIM.
One wrong,
you got to be really careful.
I use scissors to cut a regular SIM down to a micro SIM. It didn't work. But they make cutters.
I bought a cutter, but I did it with an X-Acto knife once, and I got to work.
I had a million reasons and $100 a month worth of reasons to stay with Verizon because AT&T doesn't work where I live.
Right.
But the world phone factor was huge with me for this iPhone.
I think that's really good news. It makes me feel good about switching from AT&T, which is what I did. Here it is, a nano SIM card cutter, just for the iPhone 5. So maybe you want to bring this with you. It looks like they're cutting off some of the metal. That's not. That can't be good.
That's scary.
That can't be good. You don't need this part. They just put it in. That was just extra.
Apparently so.
You don't need that
That's
part.
just to throw you off.
It's
A decoy.
To make you not want to cut through it.
See, Molly, this is why there's some discussion.
Yeah.
You actually cut into the metal.
Exactly why. Like the part that looks like the circuitry also gets cut.
It's just a flush.
Apparently there is 15% thickness difference too, so you have to shave it.
Right.
You got a razor?
Presumably in the next 6 months or year, the nano SIM will be around, and
I was
we'll
going
get
to
one in
say,
Europe.
I think nano SIMs are already in use in Europe, right? I don't think anybody's going to make it very difficult to trade. I mean, I went to the T-Mobile store to cut down a SIM for the
Right.
S3, and nobody makes a big deal out of it, so I don't think it's going to be that difficult. I would say maybe let's.
Remember, the Nokia fought this tooth and nail. They did not want nano SIMs, but they lost.
Well, they wanted a different standard.
A different nano SIM.
Yeah.
A nano SIM. We're going to take a break. A nano SIM. We're going to take a break. Come back. Molly Wood is here from Always On. So nice to see you again. Hey, Molly. Missed you. Peter Rojas from Gadget. Missed you too, but he's been here a lot. Apparently. I thought you had never been here before. I've been here 3 times. I'm an old man. I forget. Alzheimer's is great, though, because everything's fresh and new.
I've never been on the big show. I've never been on the big show. Yeah, I'm only on during the week, Mac Break Week, which is
now on.
I love Mac Break Week.
No, but
It's nice to be
now that you're IDG's editorial director, you do tech.
I'm not just the Mac guy.
You're not just a Mac guy.
I'm in the big leagues now.
PC, I mean, you're in the bigs. Yeah, you're working with Windows now. We could have you on the show. You're okay. We'll have more in just a moment. But first, a word from Citrix. You know, if you're in business, you know that it's very hard to have face-to-face meetings with everybody. This is where they did it, unless you relate clear. The phones, the iPhone 4S. There are 240 carriers.
Right, more carriers now.
Well, and it's not just an accomplishment; it's a requirement. I mean, it's something that they have needed to do. They've needed to. The fact that they have improved fulfillment overall over the last decade is fantastic for consumers. But an international rollout at this point in the market share game is crucial for them because they are the minority to Android. Android has a much bigger global base, and so being global for the iPhone is really the only thing that will keep it competitive against Android over time.
One of the things I compare it with is the Amazon Kindle Fire HD rollout, which was basically U.S. only. And while that's great, and I think what somebody said is, well, Amazon doesn't care because really the Fire is designed to be only for people who use Amazon a lot. That's who the market is.
No, I mean, it's designed to tie into their ecosystem of services, and if they can't offer those services,
then they don't want you to buy it.
There's no point.
And yet, that's what makes the Nexus 7, for instance, the Google 7-inch tablet, so much more important than the Kindle Fire because it is international.
Well, I think that, I mean, it's definitely important to Google, absolutely. I think it's been important for Android. I think that Amazon is playing a different game than everybody else. And
it was really interesting to hear Jeff Bezos say, we don't want to make money on the product. We want to make money when you use the product.
Well, you know, the theory that I have is that one of the advantages for them, or one of the reasons why they are so aggressive in selling the Kindle Fire so cheaply, is not just because they want everyone to buy, you know, Amazon tablets, because they recognize that for a lot of people, they're going to have more than one tablet in the house, and that maybe the first tablet will be the iPad, but the second one will be a Kindle Fire, which is cheaper, more affordable. And if you are using, what you're going to do is you're going to kind of, for when you're going to talk about ebooks and television and music and things like that, you're going to pick the lowest common denominator service, the one that works across both of your tablets, until you use the Amazon one.
You use the Kindle app on the iPad as well.
Exactly. And so it's not just about Amazon selling tablets that people consume their services on. It's actually about making people more inclined to use Amazon services on other devices.
That makes sense. They just released for the iPad an Amazon streaming movie app.
Absolutely. And they're going to keep doing stuff like that because they want people to have, it's almost kind of like a loss leader to get people sucked into your ecosystem. And if that's how it works, I mean, that's why, you know, at some point, that's why they're pricing the Kindle ebook reader so aggressively, because once you start buying all your ebooks on the Kindle, even if you're going to read them on your iPhone or on your iPad also, you know, you're not going to buy iBooks because you can't use it on your ebook reader.
I already do that.
Yeah,
I buy them.
That's exactly how I am.
Yep.
You know?
That's the most interesting thing in this whole ecosystem discussion over the past few years is that Amazon is maybe the only one who is not trying to create a proprietary ecosystem of interlocking devices. They are going for that kind of, just like Peter said. I'm just going to say it again for a slightly different way. They have a more global model. They have a model that can somehow make sure that they're actually wherever you are, which in the long run might be more effective. I don't think consumers want to be locked in. I think that people do want to mix and match an iPad and an Android phone, or an iPhone and an Android tablet and a Samsung TV, as opposed to buying everything from Samsung, Apple, or Google.
But I bet you, Molly, you have an iPad and a Kindle e-ink reader.
I do.
Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah. The iPad to me is not a reader and never has been. The iPad to me, I think the evolution of that device is that it is essentially another TV in the household. I mean, in my case, I'm not allowed to touch it. Only my son gets to touch it. So I had to.
Is that Eli's rule?
Kinda. Well, I mean, I could maybe touch the iPad when he's like asleep, but if he sees me playing with it,
no, it's mine.
Yeah, he's like, "What are you doing? I need to be watching Ninjago on YouTube now."
Eli rules.
Sounds like my son.
What is it? Ninjago?
Lego Ninjago is the world's greatest marketing scam for selling Legos.
I feel so old.
Dude.
It's a Lego show?
Like, can we have a tangent rant about the people that this Ninjago?
What is it? What's going on here?
Guys.
N-J-A-G-O?
N-I-N-J-A-G-O. And it's like Lego was like, we're not selling enough Lego. We need to sell even more Lego. So let's make a TV show with animated characters who are made out of Lego. And then people will watch the show and become obsessed.
It's not Ninjago, it's Ninjago.
No, it's Ninjago. Trust me. Trust me. I can get my son in here, he'll explain it to you.
No, you see, the reason it's Ninjago is, okay, so they're fighting, and then you buy the Lego
They're made
set.
out of Legos.
And
But
then you can't buy just the little guy.
no.
Like, you can't just have 4 of the 4 little ninja. You have to buy like a $45 vehicle.
Yeah, motorcycle. And
You know why this happened? Do you understand what happened?
I'm thinking universally available CAD software and 3D printers is down.
No. The reason this happened is Lego's copyright on the Lego design expired about a year ago. So anybody can make a Lego compatible. And for a long time, and they were very aggressive about pursuing people, you could not make a compatible Lego.
So now it's all about the intellectual property.
And Lego saw this coming, and if you went to Legoland, as I did with my kids were your age, or your kids' age, my kids will never be your age. When my kids, God, I hope
Let's
so.
hope.
When my kids were your kids' age, we went to Legoland, and then you could buy bricks, just and build something you wanted. Now it's all about kits. You can't. It's hard to buy just plain bricks.
At Lego stores you can buy bricks.
Yeah, but you have to
But
go.
you have to go to the Lego,
yeah.
make a pilgrimage.
What they make money on, because this is still trademark, is Ninjago
Yes.
and whatever else licensing deals. It's very interesting.
This week in Lego. Let's make it. Let's do
Well,
it.
it's a lesson, You don't want to let that trademark lapse.
Yeah.
That's why Disney keeps, moving copyright out.
Keeps lobbying the government to
Yeah.
extend their.
Yeah. Once Mickey's not.
How do we get on Lego Ninjago?
I don't know, but it's a good subject. How many iPhones did they sell in? If you went online to buy 1 hour before Apple Store got sold out, midnight to 1 a.m.
Yeah.
I got mine on Verizon 8 a.m., but I couldn't get the 64 gig. They were sold out shortly after. How about yesterday? Were the stores in short supply?
I talked to people who walked right in. The line, the lines are great for PR for Apple, and that's why they reserve a certain number to go to the stores separate from your pre-order. And the people who wait in line either don't know, or they just love to be in line,
Right.
or they love to be in line and be interviewed by
That's
press.
what they
But after that line clears, I talked to somebody who walked right in at 1 p.m, walked right up and got the phone that they wanted.
So
in
you
New
still,
York, in New York, everyone that was waiting in line outside
it was all PR.
is all people promoting their startups.
Yeah.
It's obnoxious.
And they know Channel 4, 5.
By the way, check out my stuff.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the guy who paid $1,500 on TaskRabbit to have a guy waiting in line because he could have really just gotten the phone himself 5 hours later.
But you got the PR value of being stupid.
Yeah.
You saw Fox 5.
Nobody knows what that guy's app is, right? They just know like he's that idiot.
Yeah. TaskRabbit, it's great for TaskRabbit.
TaskRabbit, yeah, maybe TaskRabbit's.
Oh, that's
If you use
true.
the TaskRabbit,
They're pulling the strings secretly.
It's all coming together now. They're probably in the Ninjago people.
Next season, Lego Ninjago, they fight the TaskRabbit.
We're back on Lego Ninjago. All right, here is exactly why somebody is first in line in an Apple store. This is Fox 5, the local news.
Yeah.
By local.
5 days.
I get
Watch this though. Watch. You gotta watch this, Peter.
I get press releases from people in line saying I'm in line. Yeah. It's about the experience.
of New Jersey is a patient man and an iPhone fan.
I've been out here following since Thursday.
Thursday, why?
Well,
Because my startup.
most amazing, best Apple
Watch
product
though.
ever.
Watch
The
careful.
iPhone 5 doesn't even come out until Friday, but already about a dozen people are camped out in front of Apple's New York flagship store on Fifth Avenue. Starting at $200, the iPhone 5 is sleeker, has a laser keyboard, holographic images, and other cool new features.
And that's why I won't be watching Fox 5.
Wow.
And other
I will say I live in New York, and that's actually pretty normal for that channel.
Apparently, the reporter got taken in by a concept video that's been floating around for a while.
Is that report from like the Fringe universe, the alternate universe?
I want that iPhone.
Parallel
Isn't it easier in the home?
that's the iPhone that happens when we surpass the laws of physics.
Yes, and it won't be
That's the Paprika iPhone.
it won't be scratchable either. That's the good news.
That would actually be news.
The moment the line waiters are more of a PR liability than an asset for Apple, Apple will turn it off and say we're not going to let you wait in line, or they'll change the. I mean, it's all.
We may have
It's a
seen the
calculation.
last one. It's jumped the shark. Don't you think?
Well,
That's
there
embarrassing.
was some free advertising there, other than the fact that it was for lasers and holograms. How many did they sell based on that?
Well, my question is, how many do you think the first weekend, with everybody be watching, they sold? They said, what, 2 million in the first day in the pre-orders. Do you think it'll be 4 million, 8 million?
It's so hard to tell. I mean, I've seen some analysts say 6 million. It'll be a nice big number, and we won't know what it really means for another 6 months.
We'll know when Apple, what is that, October 15th for the quarterly results. We'll know when they make that phone call.
They'll say how many they sold from now to the end of the year.
Right. And so it looks like success, Tim Cook. That's why Apple stock well over $700. He was able to make this phone affect the quarter in 10 days. So it's a remarkable thing. Just remarkable.
It's remarkable, but it's got to be a little bit scary. Because when you have that much of your company at this point riding on the success, I mean, they're selling Macs like gangbusters, don't get me wrong, but
it's not a big part of the problem.
So much of the success of the company rides on this phone and this ecosystem. And I really do think that we are at a point now where the smartphone market is maybe not as mature as it's going to get, but mature enough that consumers have a lot of really good choices. I know a lot of people who aren't going to buy an iPhone who are not geeks, who are like, not wanting to upgrade all their accessories, who are interested in Windows Phone because of corporate reasons, who think that Android is cheaper. I think it's a slightly scary position to be in when all your eggs are in that one iBasket.
I agree.
It's like 60% of their revenue, something like that. I mean, it's suddenly become a huge percentage of Apple's revenue.
And I think we recognize that the iPhone is maybe first among equals, but there are many other choices. Sure. The question is, when do real people realize that? I mean, right now, this is a fashion thing. You buy this because it's cool, right?
No, I don't agree with that. I think that...
So.
No,
anymore?
Remember that? Did you see the Samsung commercial, the Galaxy S3 commercial that made fun of the people in line?
Yeah, but that Samsung...
It's absolutely brilliant.
Oh, I agree.
It is totally true that your mom is on iPhone right now.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Did you notice the pivot, though? The first Samsung line commercials, the people in line were like Justin Long hipster doofuses, and the regular people were outside saying, I got a Samsung. And now they've pivoted, and it's doofuses on the line for the iPhone, and the hipsters have Samsung. It's a really strange change that they've made in that campaign.
But it's also... I think it's a little bit accurate. I mean, I actually do think that there is increasingly cachet in having a phone that does something else that's cool, whether it's have a giant screen or up until now have 4G. I mean, I think that there's a move away from it, and iPhone is becoming the easy option.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, goes to what Matt Honan...
the easy big phone.
What Matt Honan wrote about it being great and boring, and there's some truth to that, is that it's been so successful. It is so broadly considered sort of the default smartphone in some ways, and then everything else becomes an alternative. And that's not a bad position to be in on one level, but I think you're right that it's not, the Rebel Alliance or anything like it. It's the Death Star.
To me, the biggest challenge is not necessarily whether it's iPhone versus everybody else, but it's really Samsung and Apple kind of carving up the mobile industry for themselves and leaving everybody else.
That wouldn't be good. You do want competition.
You absolutely want competition. I think that what you have is two companies which have mastered the supply chain and realized that the scale that you need to have to be successful and competitive in the space is making it really difficult for everybody else to compete. I mean, HTC, is creating great phones, but they just don't have the scale and the supply chain of Samsung and Apple to be able to produce the phones as cheaply. And so it really hurts them, in terms of profits. I think they're the only other mobile phone maker which is profitable right now. I mean, and they're much smaller than Samsung and Apple. But for everybody else, I mean, the story to me is not, is Apple walking away with it, but it's really, is it going to be Apple and Samsung that walk away? And then what happens to Motorola? What happens to HTC? What happens to Red? What happens to Nokia?
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about it, the industry changes very quickly. I mean, 5 years ago, we had a completely different set of incumbents that were dominating the industry, and 5 years from now, we may be in a similar situation, or we may see that the smartphone market has reached maturity, and that all the real growth happens someplace else in the technology industry, happens in wearables, or happens in some other, part of the industry, and that's where Apple really faces a challenge. Is not, does someone else start, taking away smartphone share from them, but that is all the growth in the technology industry come from some other segment of the market that Apple's not able to compete in,
like TVs.
Like TV or some other.
I mean, Apple device is a good example. I mean, imagine back when the iPod was the thing, right? I mean, if Apple had just sort of said, "We're just doing the iPod, we're good here," and hadn't been developing the iPhone or
Exactly.
their
Very good.
iPad,
Exactly.
where would they be? They'd be dominating a segment that's just fading away.
Yeah, I mean, we all, I mean, you go back, 7, 8 years ago, we all were like, what will ever displace the iPod? And it turned out to be smartphones. And Apple was smart enough to realize that if they didn't cannibalize themselves, that somebody else would. And so, the big question is going to be, what is going to end up kind of cannibalizing that share?
That's the innovator's dilemma. And Apple so far has done a good job of transcending it.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, like, I don't really spend a lot of time worrying about Apple.
No.
Well, but it's funny, like,
I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm talking about it.
Apple is in dire straits.
Well,
or
but
any kind of danger.
yeah, but it is funny, like, how sometimes you will see, I won't say names, but you do see, like, Apple partisans who are so defensive of the company. Like, you know what? It's not 15 years ago when the company was on the verge of bankruptcy and needed to be protected. Like, I don't worry about that.
The 1997 thing reminds me of my dad grew up during the Great Depression, and it's like the permanent scarring of
Yeah, you never let
living
go,
through
right?
that. And with a lot of Apple people, it's like that. And the reality is, Apple is so profitable. If you don't even look at the market share numbers and say there are more Androids phones being sold than iPhones, if Apple ends up with 30% of the smartphone market, is stable 40%, and is doing the profits that they're doing now, they're going to be fine,
Yeah.
right? But what is the shape of that overall market? Is the big question.
Yeah.
Is it just a couple of phone makers?
I mean, it's certainly possible. The market seems to be coalescing, and that, and again, it's such a huge industry that if you're not able to get to a massive scale, you're not going to be able to compete. And you'll see the Huawei's and ZTE